Yeah, you can hit close.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's
So,
slightly better.
do you see it? Yeah. Is it visible?
Yeah, now it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Diagnosing the teleological sickness. Yeah. No, this is an interesting article of the Wiley Journal. Let's see if we can. Do you see that when I go here? Do you see the, or do you still see, do you see the
I see
original
it,
article?
yes.
Okay. So it's a Wiley online library. Wiley is quite a prestigious editor who publishes these peer-reviewed papers. And it is this thing here, this article, teachers' ability to diagnose and deal with alternative student conceptions of evolution. So it's about the fact that they complain. What this article is about is essentially a description of how evolution is taught in the classroom and the misconceptions that students and even experienced teachers have about evolution. What sounds at first as an innocent pedagogical advice on a peer-reviewed journal to make biology classes more effective, after a closer inspection turns out to be an interesting ideological pamphlet. The authors complain that students adopt intuitive ways of seeing about the world, as if using intuition is a terrible thing, resulting in naive theories that constitute an obstacle to learning scientific concepts. And guess what these intuitive and naive theories are? Of course, they are the cognitive biases towards anthropomorphic, teleological, and essentialist thinking. If you intuitively perceive an immutable or hidden essence in things or life, that plants or animals really wish, try, and strive, that there is an intentional adaptation of individuals, or glimpses through the natural processes a goal directedness, a purpose, an external designer, or internal needs in the organisms, then you are making scientifically illegitimate and naive conjectures. And therefore, what these authors suggest is that teachers should convince their students that there is no goal, no purpose, no meaning in evolution, which thereby means that also your own life is purposeless, you are just a robot, you are a meaningless individual, just as a bunch of neurons in a meaningless and purposeless universe. That's what they suggest at the end, subliminally. We are all automatons that have come into existence only because of undirected
I
random
I
mutations.
doubt that Richard Dawkins would agree with this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, but I'm going to answer to Richard Dawkins now, and the blind natural selection. Yeah, yeah, but essentially this is what Richard Dawkins and company are saying us. No, students must be diagnosed. They really use this word diagnosed as if it is a terrible sickness. No, when deviating from the relevant scientific concept, as if these were mental diseases, and teachers must do their utmost to eradicate these alternative conceptions, to preserve an intellectual lost purity. A long discussion and a list of advices follows on how to diagnose and cure this teleological disease. Okay, here we should perhaps teleological disease, diagnose a teleological disease, I would put. Okay, doesn't matter. That for some reason persists, insists, and stubbornly resists in our thinking. So now here I already know what the Dawkins and co would say, and you might think that I'm going to defend those creationist movements that tried, fortunately unsuccessfully, to reintroduce alternative views of evolution in the classrooms. That's not what I'm going. That's not what I mean. That's not at all my intention. Far from it. Biology, especially evolutionary biology, should be taught in a strictly secular and unbiased manner. God, religion, and metaphysical speculations should stay out of the biology classes. However, having said that, precisely this is the point. These kind of pedagogical advices, I don't know if there's a plural of advices, anyhow. Take a look at the references of the paper, and you will realize that there is a long list of publications going in the same direction. So this kind of pedagogical advices are presenting their ideology, metaphysics, as well, and would like to label it as science. Because the point is, in what sense is assuming evolution being undirected, non-teleological, without hidden essences, or without a designer, a claim that is less metaphysical than positing the opposite assumption? So I'm not claiming that there is a direction in evolution. I'm just saying that if you claim that there is no direction in evolution, you are also making a metaphysical statement.
Yes.
Yeah? It's
Yeah.
both positions are statements of faith. Both are philosophical positions outside the domain of science. The claim of the Darwinist that evolution has no goal or purpose is a metaphysical statement as well, affirming that the inner volition of the organism plays no role in evolution is no more and no less speculative as stating that it does. Negating essentialism, by the way, what is essentialism? That is the view that certain categories have an underlying reality or true nature that one cannot observe directly, but that gives an object its identity and is responsible for other similarities that category members share, is no less legitimate or illegitimate than positing it. This means this essentialism means this was an old idea of Aristotle. He said there is something essential, and also of Plato. He had this idea of that there is a other mental world, a hyper-Uranian, where there objects and living things have as an essential ideal reality that is independent from our physical reality. So one can believe or not believe something like that, yeah. But saying that there is none, and it is also pure speculative philosophy. It's not something that you can decide by a scientific observation. So here again, I expect the other point, the other objection of the physicalist. At this point, one might pull out of the hat Occam's razor and declare that there is no reason to believe that in evolution there is more than randomness plus natural selection. We don't need to posit goals or aims, or that we can dispense with any extra hypothesis involving designers. Yes, that's also your opinion, because Occam's razor is a methodological approach, not something that reveals a scientific truth. Invoking principles of parsimony to defend a worldview can't be elevated to the level of an empiric fact. What is parsimonious or necessarily is a highly subjective matter, and this itself depends on our own ideological background. If I believe that there is a designer, for me it's parsimonious. If I don't believe it, it's not parsimonious. One scientific...
Yeah, I read this concept before about parsimony, saying that, well, the simplest, the truth.
Yeah, but what is simple or parsimonious or necessary or unnecessary
Yeah,
is a subjective opinion. I respect Dawkins and
What is a measure? Like, do you have any quantitative measure of what's the meaning of simplicity, or what is a complex theory? There's no measure
you
to
don't
it.
have something like that, no? So uh,
Yeah.
it's
Correct.
so
When I
it
was
is.
reading literature on this, I used to literally believe it. I was like only like in primary school or something, and I used to read lots of literature, and I literally believed what they were writing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's another point, that in school we don't speak about philosophy. Philosophy has become a very secondary subject, unfortunately. And this had
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
detrimental
make money.
effects.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't make money, why should people
Yeah.
explore it?
Yeah, I can also contest this, but let me
Maybe also
finish.
teachers here also have not even heard of what philosophy is for.
Mm. Let me finish this article so we can
Sure.
also discuss that once, because I go also to this point. No, once scientific findings have been presented, yeah, so the teachers should present the scientific findings, yeah, then it should be left to everyone, to the students, not to the teacher, what metaphysical belief system represents these findings better. Or we can eventually also raise this question. If these questions should be raised, then they can eventually be debated in a philosophy class, but not in a biology classroom. No? In principle, there is nothing wrong by holding one or the other belief system, but we should become aware that these are all questions and debates that transcend the domain of science. They should not be taught in biology and presented as scientific knowledge or scientific legitimate knowledge, as the authors like to call it. The teleological view isn't science, of course, but also the anti-teleological view isn't either, and cannot be camouflaged as science. This article is nevertheless worth reading. I suggest everyone to read this because it represents the typical pseudo-agnostic ideology of a widespread and quite aggressive pseudo-scientific militant atheist movement. The big question is, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of losing something? Perhaps their mind. So who is afraid of teleology? No? That's what I put this article in front. Okay, so this was the last blog post. And yeah, the point that I wanted to make is not to defend a position, but simply that whatever position we take, it is metaphysics, it is an opinion, it is philosophy. It is not something that we can present as a scientific truth as these authors do. No?
Yeah, and typically in school structures in Singapore, they do not
Yeah.
discuss about this stuff because it's more like a distraction from their grades. So if the exams are only asking for physics questions, mathematics questions, that's what you teach. And teachers
Yeah.
themselves have no knowledge about
Yeah,
how
in a
to
certain
think.
sense, I agree also. If we don't want to fall into these metaphysical questions and remain agnostic, then I say, okay, let's take the pretty dry way and just present facts.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that we should say that evolution is goal driven, that there is an aim, a purpose, or whatever. I'm saying don't say that it is not goal driven or that it has no purpose. It's like it's a belief in God. You don't go into a biology class and you say, I present you the scientific proof that God doesn't exist. um, of course, this
you can't have
raises
proof for
resistance.
something. You can't have proof for something that does not exist.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is the point of view of the materialist, but I'm not so sure because we are able to prove that ether, the luminous ether, does not exist in relativity. This has been done. The question is, why is it so difficult to prove? And one can also say the opposite. You cannot prove something that you can only perceived through a first-person perspective. I cannot prove
That's
you.
not true.
I cannot prove you. I cannot prove you that I'm conscious. Prove me that you are conscious. I say that you are a blind automaton and you have no feelings and you have no conscious experience. You are not a sentient being. You are a zombie. Prove the opposite.
Yeah, no one can debate that.
You cannot, but you know.
You can enforce it any way you want it.
Yes,
And you
you
can keep
can,
debating about it.
but you cannot have a proof. I can infer it because I can say I have no reason to believe that I am the only living being in the universe to have sentience, to be a conscious being, to feel and perceive something. So through a logical inference, I assume that you are a conscious being. You are not just a zombie speaking with me. Yeah. But from a scientific point of view, consciousness should not exist. If we accept the fact that consciousness exists, it is only because of a first person internal subjective experience, not because of an empiric fact outside there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the same thing
It
fits
feels like
with
a different domain. Yeah.
it's the first person and third person approaches are different domains.
Yeah.
And we should not try to invalidate the first person experience by a third person approach only.
Which
The
is
question
what
is,
many popular science writers do.
and that's what these people
Messes things
we're
up.
talking about continuously do, but they do it unconsciously. I'm not claiming that there is some conspiracy or some hidden agenda. It's a mindset. It's a culture. They have been raised in our schools. We have been brainwashed with this way of thinking, and we now
Yeah, and
unconsciously
there's a
think
reason
that it
why
is
they call it
scientific.
popular, right? People like to read controversial things.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's actually to generate some income from the books, mostly, I
Yeah,
suppose.
this, yeah, Dawkins and company make a lot of money. They have sold millions of copies. I don't dare to think.
Yeah, because controversy sells.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though if it's
But
not
okay.
100% scientific.
I don't go in. I'm willing to believe that he
Like
really
famous books
believes
like The
that.
Selfish Gene, there is some purpose to genetics. Well, the only purpose is to survive, nothing else.
Yes, so I'm not going down the track. Oh, you say this only because you want to sell your stuff. I want also to sell my books. Yeah,
Everyone wants to.
yeah, but I have still a long way to sell so many books as Dawkins. But no, I believe them that they are honest. They genuinely believe that. Yeah. And I don't want to change their mind. They can continue to.
No,
But the
people will
point,
take it as face value, right? Because
no.
it's written by a Nobel laureate and all.
So yeah, first of all, there is all the people tend to believe in things because of the authority. But
Yeah,
the point is, don't present as a scientific truth, a scientific fact, something that is an opinion, something that is a personal philosophy, something that is also a metaphysical assumption. Yeah?
viewpoint.
As long as you don't do that, we can go peacefully onto different paths, but I'm fine with it. What triggers my nervous system uh, is when these people begin to present these things as scientific facts,
Respect.
and they try to convince teachers and whoever to push towards this worldview. Then we have a problem.
But
And
they should be
they,
smart enough to realize that it's a viewpoint because they have been in a professional field
it
for a
is a
long time.
viewpoint.
Maybe it's something to do with egoism that takes over their
Yeah,
experience. What, do you think it's
yeah.
possible? No.
Maybe, yeah, egoistic. You know that then there's also the issue that if you work in a specific environment, you have an evolutionary biologist, yeah, and openly out yourself as someone who has a teleological illness,
Authority.
sickness, disease, uh, yeah, you might have some more problem to make a career than someone who is professing a strictly physicalist, reductionist, non-teleological point of view. But yes and no, I think it's something deeply rooted in our mentality in a very general sense. And yeah, so I'm trying to bring also, yes, it is an alternative conception, as the title says, it is about an alternative conception. Yeah? To say that they want to present the alternative conception as an unscientific or wrong conception, whereas it's neither unscientific nor wrong nor right. It's, as Pauli would say, it's not even wrong. It is
It's just an
just
opinion.
it's an open-ended,
Some sort of,
an opinion,
yeah,
open-ended conception.
that may or
Okay.
may not be explored scientifically in the future. Who knows? Based
Sorry.
on what tools we have, that may or may not be scientifically resolved, and it's okay to be open-ended.
Yeah,
I suppose.
in my book I wrote about a possibility to go through a third stage where we are neither in the metaphysics nor in the physics, but in
Yeah,
something else,
it's
where
interesting
we can
because when,
try to unite these points of
yeah,
view.
it's interesting because most of the major scientific breakthroughs, you can see that Newton, Einstein, they had some very strong philosophical background. In fact,
Yeah,
they were pretty involved in it before
yeah,
they published their some scientific ones. So it's not like they came from a purely materialistic view.
yeah,
History itself shows that they had a very strong philosophy. Actually, Einstein was very well read in a particular area of philosophy, German philosophy. I forgot
yeah.
what area was that,
Idealist,
but
but he was
yeah,
interested in
I believe,
Spinoza.
yeah, you're right. That one, yes.
Spinoza, he was a
So
Spinozian. Yeah,
they, yeah, that also, yes. So
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
so yeah, you should keep these two domains open, not like
Yeah,
discriminate them. But our current educational system is discriminating the other one based
yeah.
on the
Exactly.
economic or based on the economic output. So
Yeah.
that I feel might be a sort of a hindrance to the progress of science, or rather fundamental. So I mean, that's one way to look at it. If you just look at the history of
In
science, like
schools, we
face
need
blank.
to rediscover philosophy. Yeah, but I don't think we should go back to
But
this
then teachers
arid.
also say it's a distraction. They say it's a distraction. How professors
Mm,
are going to argue and teachers are going to argue, how are the students going to build up the technical
this,
skills
yeah, this is a
to
very,
get a
very.
software engineering job, or to be scientifically competent. Let's say if they want to work in the Large Hadron Collider, you're not going to get that sufficient amount of skills in time if they spend all the time doing philosophical wanderings,
Uh,
and they're not going
but
to
I
get
think
technical.
that one can also argue with the opposite argument, that if you don't have philosophical background, if you are not trained since childhood, I would begin since childhood with a sort of philosophical dialogue, training, discourse.
Yeah.
Of course, at every age, you cannot teach Plato to a child of 6 years, of course. But
No, but I don't think
you can train children,
philosophy
and
also
also
comes from the internal drive to
it comes. Yeah,
internal
good point.
curiosity.
There is something in us that you cannot repress, something that wants to know, that is curious, that is wants to. Yeah. But we have to train this mental philosophical way of thinking about things, of investigation, a philosophical investigation, because if we do not, also then in the pragmatic world, in the doing, in the everyday practice, in our everyday life, and also when you work as a Large Hadron Collider, you will have a very different attitude. And I suspect that we have lost a lot of time, perhaps generations, because now they are not finding anything at the Large Hadron Collider, by the way. They are stuck with this superstrings theory, which probably it is a wrong theory. It doesn't seem to work so far, at least, and it's probably doesn't work. And it it is a classical shut up and calculate theory with no philosophical background. And now they discover that it doesn't work, and now they are philosophizing about it, but it's a complete mess. I would say that the philosophical background of the modern scientist is that of a 7th or 8th grader, perhaps even less. I would even say, I sometimes say that there are some high-ranking philosophers that, in my opinion, their philosophy would be debunked easily by a 7th or 8th grader who
And
is
imagine the amount of
really
effort
good in
and time they put in.
Yeah, and the fact that
Yeah,
we are
actually, I
not
was amazed
trained in
because
this.
when I was a kid, yeah,
Mm,
so when I was a kid, I used to have all these ideas. And then when I used to hit the library, wow, I'm as smart as this philosopher who's so famous. Then
exactly.
I began to think, am I really that smart? So it gave me some inflated idea that I'm smart
Yeah,
when I was
no,
a
but
kid. When I was a
no,
kid, I had those thoughts. And when I hit the library, I saw those concepts right in the book.
yeah, yeah, but
Even abstract ones or
that's
simple ones
really
as well.
the thing. We should recover this. The children go to a library, open a philosophy book, and say, "Oh, that's interesting." If not, they want to play football. Yeah, great,
I
great.
thought of it.
Or cricket if you win, or I don't know what your sports. What do you play in Singapore? What is the preferred sports in Singapore?
Many sports.
Many. So there's not some national. In Germany, it's football, just to say something. In America, it's American football or basket. No, and so, but that's fine. But these the internal instinct and desire of the child to know and also to philosophize eventually. Why should this be repressed? It is not a distraction, quite the contrary. It gives you a boost more when you will be a grown up, as it was for Einstein, as it was for many scientists. The greatest scientists, most of them, had a philosophical background. And by the way, they were also sometimes playing music or were active in arts and so on. This doesn't mean, however, that in schools we have to return back and then learn and memorize what Plato said, what Plotinus said, what Kant said. No,
That does not
please
matter. But
not. That's horrible. But
let's say if you have a child who is philosophically driven and according to his own biology and own way of learning, his approach is the philosophy way. His own pedagogy is separate from most children,
yeah,
and his habit is to hit the library. He goes back, he thinks deeply, he thoughts of some concepts, like he creates some concepts.
yeah,
He goes to the library, hey, these concepts exist in the library. Then he will feel so he will feel that he's talented. He will feel so motivated to continue his journey of philosophizing
yeah.
because
Maybe,
whenever he thinks of stuff, he see it in the library. It's there,
yeah, yeah. The library.
and it
I
gives him a
believe
good
that
boost, and
textbooks.
it also
Yeah,
gives the child a boost to pursue truth, right?
exactly.
Or whatever he conceives.
Very
What's the
well
meaning of
said.
truth?
Yes, very well said. To
Then,
pursue
but
truth.
then the problem is when
Mm,
he goes to school, he will feel repressed.
yeah,
He will feel repressed by the system
because it
because
is repressed. It is philosophy nowadays. It is something repressed. Even those schools, the few schools that still somehow teach philosophy, it is a way of rote learning, the memorizing, just reciting from the books, philosophy books, what the ancient philosophers said. That's
but
not the
actually
real
I was quite
philosophy.
shocked
What
because I
what
was a kid without any
let me
background, like any
Barry, let me finish this point because I think
sure.
uh, what we need today is not so much learning the philosophy of other philosophers, but learning to philosophize, so to speak, learning to argue, learning to have ideas, have intuition.
Yeah.
They in this article they are shocked that people use intuition, but we should use intuition. We should, however, be able also to distinguish between an intuition and a scientific fact, of course. But intuition should be used and should be exercised. They instead they see this as something despicable. Huh? And in the schools we should teach children, not teach because I don't like to this. We should encourage children to have a philosophical dialogue. You have a position, I have the opposite position. Like good old Hegel. Hegel said, take one position, the other position, and then make a synthesis. Thesis, antithesis,
Yeah.
synthesis. Yeah.
Correct.
So let's learn to do that. Yeah. Since childhood. It doesn't matter if you are right or wrong. It doesn't matter if you arrive at a truth. I don't think we will never arrive to a final truth. Uh, it is completely irrelevant. But exercise this way of philosophizing since childhood. And this dialogue, the dialectic, you don't need to know Hegel. You don't need to teach children Hegel. Oh my God, that would be poor children. But this way of the dialect, and having a dialogue according to this dialectic, would nurture a generation that would think in a completely different manner. And I'm pretty sure that this is not a distraction, but to the contrary, will have very pragmatic and practical effects on our way of doing also things when we are then grown-ups. But unfortunately, schools repress this kind of doing philosophy.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
if it's
and
not relevant to the material world, if it
it
does
is
not bring
relevant,
money,
but,
why
but it
should
is
we worry about
relevant.
it?
But it is not relevant in the way that we would like it to see it immediately. It is not relevant perhaps on the short term, but it will be very
Yeah.
relevant on the long term. And when we
And
are
one of the
educating
interesting
children
things,
in
people
school,
have
it's a
seen
long
this right
term
in
thing.
front of their eyes. People have seen this in history. They have seen it right in front of their eyes, but they are pushing it aside based on what the immediate needs are of
Yeah,
society.
yeah. Yeah. We are still in a very pragmatic and
Yes,
materialistic society.
software
Yeah.
engineers do not need philosophy to work on software or
Are you
products.
sure? Okay, I'm not a software engineer, and I have never thought about that. I have no strong opinions about that, but I'm not sure even about that, because programming also, the way you program may also be somehow dependent on how you see the world, on how you think about the world, on how you feel and perceive the world. Uh, okay, I have never thought about that. I don't know, but I'm not sure that this
Yeah, but
is.
based on what the demands are,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
but
time waste.
you know that program you can make a program that achieves specific skills and tasks, but you can build a lot of an infinite number of programs that achieve the same task. The way you program, the code, how it is coded, how it is structured, and so on,
Yeah,
depends
the methods and stuff.
a lot from our state of mind, of our ideas on how. I would. It's an interesting point. Could be interesting point of research. Okay, well, it was a nice, interesting discussion about this. Maybe
Yeah,
we can repeat these forms of dialogues for every blog post. I don't know, but
yeah.
yeah,
Why not? You can just attach a video that.
yeah, we can just show it share it on the screen and make vlog,
Yeah,
not
actually, what
blog,
you can do
vlog
is
posts.
in the same blog post itself, you can attach a YouTube video.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Right.
good. Yeah, good
So,
idea. Yeah, could be interesting. Yeah. 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 Let's make it. Let's do that. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Wagish. You're frozen, I think. Do you see me? Yeah. Now I see
My
you.
internet is a bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's time to say goodbye.
No problem. Have
Okay.
a good day.
Thank you, Vagish. Have you a good evening, I think, no? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Have a good
sleep
day.
well. Bye. Thank you. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.